Hello, and welcome to Super Deep Movie Analysis. I'm actor and filmmaker Lec Zorn. Well, you can probably tell that I'm very excited today, and that's because just 5 days from now, this Friday, March the 3rd, 2023, is the long awaited release of Creed 3, the ninth overall movie in the Rocky/Creed series, obviously the third Creed movie, and coming very appropriately with the release date of 3/3, March the 3rd. Whether they did that intentionally as a play on this being the third Creed movie, I don't know. However, it should be noted that both of the first two Creed movies were released on Thanksgiving Eve in 2015 and 2018, respectively. So it's been, for us fans, nearly half a decade, about 4 years and 4 months, or 4 years and 3 months since Creed 2. And in preparation for the big release this Friday, MGM released two trailers, as they did for each of the first two Creed movies. The first one coming on October the 18th. It has a whopping 15 million views on YouTube. And then the second one coming just 11 days ago on February the 15th. And despite being available for only about a tenth as much as long as the original trailer, the new one actually has 16 million views on YouTube, a million more than the first one. So right now I'm going to super deep analyze the two trailers, and first I'm going to give you a description of each of them. The first Creed trailer starts off with a voiceover of Adonis saying, "I spent the last 7 years of my life living out my wildest dreams. Bianca, Rocky, my dad, this is built on their shoulders." And while he's saying that, we see the following shots. We see Adonis in the ring raising his right fist in triumph, while a member of his entourage is standing in the background holding up the championship belt. Three quick cuts of Adonis in a boxing match against an unidentified opponent. A shot of two unidentified people looking in what appears to be a tribute to Adonis in a boxing museum. Um, then we see a tabletop in which there's an issue of Forbes magazine whose cover features a picture of Adonis and the phrase, "What's next for the champ?" Then we see a smiling Bianca dressed lavishly and walking with a dark purple curtain behind her, possibly at a gala event. We see a shot of a romantic embrace between Adonis and Bianca, apparently in the living room of their house. We see a shot of Adonis, Bianca, their daughter Amara, and an unidentified white couple standing posing for pictures in front of an advertisement for a pay-per-view event. Then two quick shots of Adonis at a press conference, a shot of Apollo's tombstone, a shot of Adonis under an umbrella standing in front of the tombstone, Adonis sitting at his desk while on the phone, two boxers sparring at a gym. It's unclear if Adonis is one of them. An exterior shot of Adonis inside a building, possibly a gym, looking out the window. Then the MGM logo. Then we see the character of Damian Anderson leaning on Adonis's car. Um, Adonis approaches him and says, hey man, can I help you?" Damian lightheartedly says, "Give me your autograph." Adonis says, "No, I ain't. No, I ain't signing no autographs till you get off my car." Damian says, "You don't remember me, huh?" Adonis looks stunned. Then a flashback is shown of Adonis and Damian as teenagers putting their hands up in the air, possibly being confronted by police. Adonis now realizes who this person is and says, "Damian." The two are then shown walking into a restaurant, looking friendly toward each other. Amid four shots of them walking inside the restaurant, Adonis is heard saying, "How long were you locked up?" To which Damien responds, "18 years, bro. Just got out last week." Now the two are shown seated at a table. Adonis says, "Glad to have you back out." Damien says, "I know I've been away a long time, but I've got myself in shape. I still got gas in the tank." Adonis replies, "Come by the gym." Damien gives what seems to be a grateful smile and says, "Thank you." During that exchange, Damien is also shown first running on a beach, then standing on a beach. Then, amid the black screen, we see the words from director Michael B. Jordan. Then we see Adonis and Damien walking into a gym. Then Adonis, Bianca, and Damien sitting outside in an unclear location. Bianca asks, "What happened with you two?" Damien says something that I failed to decipher after listening to it several times. Then Damien is shown reclining in an unclear location, smiling and saying, "We was like brothers." Then we see Damien in the gym hitting a punching bag. Two people are watching him as if they're impressed. While that's going on, a voiceover from Damien is heard saying, "I was the best, though." Damien is now showing doing push-ups, possibly in his apartment, while a voiceover of him is while a voice over from him is heard saying, "But I never got a chance to prove that." Now we see a trainer putting head protection on Damien, then several quick shots of Damien sparring with another boxer and being very aggressive toward him. Then we see Little Duke watching and seeming very concerned and saying, "Hey, hey." Then several shots of other people looking concerned, one saying, "What you doing, man?" Another saying, "You trying to hurt him?" Then, after the sparring is stopped, Damien pushes the other boxer, at which several people get in the ring to intervene, while the voiceover from Little Duke is heard saying, "I know what you're doing, Donnie." Then Little Duke and Adonis are shown, and Little Duke says, "You don't owe this dude nothing." Amid two shots of Damien running on the streets of a big city at night, a voiceover from Adonis is heard saying, "Damien's fighting a war, and he's trying to hurt people." Adonis is then shown telling Damien, "I vouched for you." Damien responds, "You think you're mad?" Then we see a shot of Damien outdoors taking his shirt off and another of him doing pull-ups, while we hear him say in a voiceover, "Try spending half your life in a cell." Then Damien and Adonis are shown while Damien says, "Watching someone else live your life." In other words, the whole message is try spending half your life in a cell watching someone else live your life. Damien is then shown outdoors taking his sunglasses off. Adonis and Damien are then shown again, and Damien says, "I'm coming for everything." Adonis responds, "You threatening me?" Damien responds with an intimidating look. Then we see a few people walking on a beach as the sun is setting while Adonis is sitting in a vehicle that looks similar to a Jeep and is parked on the beach. Then we see a close-up of Adonis inside the vehicle looking reflective. Amid those two shots, we hear a voiceover from Bianca saying in a concerned tone, "Something is going on with you." Then we see Damien first from the front, then from behind, amid a voiceover from Adonis saying, "Damien was like family." Then two quick shots of Damien are shown punching an opponent with the name Chavez on his trunks. Then Chavez is shown lying on the mat, apparently severely injured. Then we see a shot of Damien looking pleased about having given his opponent such a beating. And finally, a shot of a middle-aged black man formally dressed, kneeling down in the ring, possibly attending to the injured boxer and looking concerned. Amid the last two cuts, we hear a voiceover from Adonis saying, "Now we passed talking." Then Bianca is shown saying to Adonis, "Then maybe you just have to fight him." Then amid a black screen, we see the words, "This March." Then we see three young black men outdoors amid palm trees, and one points at a poster promoting a match between Adonis and Damien, billed as "Battle for Los Angeles." Above the picture of the boxers is the name Hennessy. Then we see three quick shots of the match between Adonis and Damien, and then the black screen is shown again with the words, "There's no enemy." Then we see Adonis lying on his back and lifting a weight with each hand while people are standing behind a rail and watching as if it's a training event that's open to the public. Then we see two shots of Adonis running outdoors in daylight while throwing punches, the latter one from closer up. Then we see Adonis teaching Amara how to punch. Then a shot of her hitting a punching bag as her father watches. Then the black screen returns with the words, "like the past," thus making the full message, "There's no enemy like the past." Then we see Adonis tensely looking in a mirror, then Damien tensely looking in a mirror with a couple of boxing-related articles tucked in, one of which is a pay-per-view advertisement. I enlarged it as much as I could on my screen. I couldn't definitively make out what either article was, other than like I said, that one of them was a pay-per-view advertisement, and they both were related to boxing. Then we see Adonis at home holding an object and swatting something. I could not tell what the object that he was holding or the object that he swatted is. Then we see Adonis outdoors in training gear and leaning on a tree with both hands. Then Adonis practicing his punching outdoors. Then Adonis in a bathtub looking tense, first shown from the front, then from above. Then we see Damien walking to the ring. Then Adonis, Bianca, and Amara sitting together at a table, possibly at a gym, seemingly alone. But then at the next shot, dozens of people are seen to be watching them and seemingly cheering on Adonis. And then we see a close up of a few of them cheering. Then we see Adonis walking to the ring. Then one of the boxers is running on the beach as the sun is setting. First a distant shot, then a close shot. I could not tell which boxer it was. Then we see Adonis with his mouth wide open during a fight, possibly shouting very passionately. Then we see a black screen. Then we see Adonis sitting in his corner between rounds and being told by Little Duke, I need you to let go of your fear. Then we see a shot of either Adonis as a teenager. Um, then we see a shot of Adonis as a teenager sitting in a car in low light, looking very concerned, while Little Duke says, let go of the guilt. Then the teenage Damien is shown in a car also looking very concerned. Then Damien is shown in his corner during the fight, while Little Duke says, let go of whatever it was. Then Adonis is shown in his corner, while Little Duke says, and walk into what is. In other words, the full message is, I need you to let go of your fear, let go of the guilt, let go of whatever was, and walk into what is. Then we see Adonis shown rising from his corner, then Damien rising from his corner, and then 4 quick shots of their fight, and then the black screen says Creed 3, and then we move into the credits. Now, that was trailer number 1. Now here's trailer number 2. We see a person wearing a costume that looks like a combination of a monster or a space alien, looks very out of place for a boxing match, and it's spreading colorful dust around, possibly to pave the way for one of the boxers to make a dramatic entrance through the haze. Then we see a shot of a hill, apparently in the Los Angeles area, near sunset. A voice sounding like a black minister coming through a low-quality speaker says, the higher you get, the harder it gets. Adonis is then shown standing on the hill. Adonis is then shown standing on the hill and seemingly looking into the far distance. After a few seconds, he widely opens his mouth as if shouting very loudly. Then, apparently in a room at Adonis's house, 2 glass encasements are shown, and they both light up, and then a few overhead lights light up as well in an otherwise dimly lit room. And of the 2 glass encasements, one displays 3 pairs of boxing gloves, and the other displays 6 championship belts. A pool table is shown in front of the encasement. A close-up is then shown of one of the pairs of boxing gloves. Below it is a picture of a boxing match, probably featuring Apollo Creed. The boxer that is most prominently shown is wearing red, white, and blue trunks. Fireworks are then shown at a sports venue as part of a pre-boxing match introduction. The voice from the earlier voiceover says, "That's life." In other words, the full message is, the higher you get, the harder it gets. That's life. And that the phrase "that's life" spans the last 2 cuts that I just mentioned: the fireworks at the pre-match introduction, and then the shot of a picture of a boxing match, possibly featuring Apollo Creed. Then we see a slow-motion shot of Adonis walking to the ring. A male voice that I don't recognize says, "Because this is a war." Then Then we see a distant shot of the ring as the voice now says, "This is a fight. This is a fight. It's a battle." Then we see Damien walking to the ring. Then 2 shots of Adonis and Damien walking up to each other for their pre-fight instructions from the referee. The first shows Damien's face. The second shows Adonis's. Then we see Adonis and Damien sitting in a car as teenagers. Bianca says in a voiceover spanning the last 3 shots, "So how long have you known each other?" Then we see Adonis and Damien sitting in a car as teenagers. First from one side, then from let me back up. We see 2 shots of Adonis and Damien sitting in the car as teenagers. We see 1 shot from each side of the car. Then we see Adonis, Bianca, and Damien sitting at a table in an unclear outdoor location at night. A smiling Damien says, "We was like brothers." Then we see the MGM logo. Then Damien leaning on Adonis's car. Then Adonis seeing Damien and looking surprised. We then hear a voiceover from Adonis saying, "One day you came back." Adonis is then shown saying to Bianca, probably inside their house, the past came back too. Then we see a shot of the teenage Adonis and Damien holding their hands up, possibly being confronted by police. Then we see a shot of Damien walking inside a gym toward a boxing ring. Um, then Marianne, Adonis's adoptive mother, says, "There may have been a time when Damien had your back," and then near the end of the previous, she actually starts the voiceover near the end of the previous cut, and then she finishes it while she continues it while we see her. And then we see Damien's right hand being punched by a trainer, then Damien hitting a punching bag. Then Marianne tells Adonis, but that's not what he's doing now, thus making her a full quote. "There may have been a time when Damien had your back, but that's not what he's doing now." Then we see a shot of Damien charging at a sparring opponent, then two shots of Damien throwing punches at the opponent, one shot of him falling, and one shot of Damien walking away as if he's confident that his opponent won't beat the count. Then we see Little Duke walking, probably in the gym, watching Damien. Then we see the gate of a prison. Um, the gate of a prison yard, while Damien starts to say in a voiceover, "Before I got locked up, I was the best." And then he's shown finishing the quote. Damien and his entourage are then shown before a match while the media films them. Then Adonis and Damien are talking outdoors, and angry Damien says, "Try spending half your life in a cell." The quote continues, "Watching somebody else live your life," as he walks out as he walks out as he walks outdoors toward a bar to do pull-ups, then looks at himself in a mirror, apparently in a gym. So his full quote is, "Before I got locked up, I was the best." Um, no, I'm sorry. The full quote that I'm trying to put together is, "Try spending half your life in a cell watching somebody else live your life." Then we see Damien hitting a punching bag. Then Damien knocking down an opponent. Then we see fans, possibly loved ones of the boxer just knocked down, look concerned. A woman, possibly the boxer's wife, hurries toward the ring. A close-up of Damien, possibly about to start a match, is shown as he says in a voiceover, "I'm just getting started, little brother." Then two quick shots of Damien hitting an opponent. Bianca and Amara are then shown in the audience looking concerned. Bianca starts to turn away. Bianca starts to turn Amara around, possibly to leave, or maybe to hide, or to stop Amara from seeing something disturbing, especially involving her father getting seriously hurt. Then Damien is standing in the ring as the referee has blood on his shirt and signals that the boxer who was knocked down failed to beat the count and that Damien has won the match. Then we see a shot of a middle-aged black man dressed formally, kneeling down in the ring, possibly attending to the injured boxer, and looking concerned. Then Damien is standing outdoors, possibly talking to Adonis, saying, "I'm coming for it all." Then Adonis tells Bianca, apparently at their house, "He's not going to stop." Bianca responds, "Then you make him." Then on a black screen, we see the words from director Michael B. Jordan. Then we see Adonis walking into a building, first shown from the back, then from the front. I'm not sure what kind of building it is. The voiceover then starts. The following voiceover then starts over the last two shots. The one and only Adonis Creed, "You're the best pound for pound fighter in the world." The voiceover then finishes showing Adonis on what seems to be a TV talk show. Adonis is shown in a boxing ring that seems to be inside an airplane hangar. He's punching pads that are worn by a trainer. Then, continuing on what I believe is a TV talk show, Adonis says 3 years ago, and then I'm sorry, the host says 3 years ago. Then the voiceover continues, "It's been a minute since you've been out there in these streets." As a boxer wearing trunks and no shirt, as if he's about to have a match, walks menacingly up to Adonis, who's wearing street clothes. Um, I assume that boxer is probably Damien, but I can't tell from this shot. Then Adonis is shown responding to the host, saying, "When I walked away from boxing." Then two quick shots are shown of what I believe to be first Damien and then Adonis in sparring sessions. Adonis is then shown training with a medicine ball while his voiceover continues, I walked away with some unfinished business, thus making the full quote, when I walked away from boxing, I walked away with some unfinished business. Then he's shown, and when he finishes the quote, we see him sitting at the desk or the table at what seems to be the talk show. Then we see Adonis practicing his punching, again seemingly inside an airplane hangar. Then we see Adonis in a gym, and a middle-aged black man stands behind him and says, "You see that man right there? Do you remember him?" Then we see Adonis punching a tree. Then a black screen with the words "On March 3rd." Then we see Adonis shown from behind standing on a beach near sunset. Then Adonis shown from behind sitting close to a forest. Then a trainer taping a boxer's hand. Then a close-up of Adonis in a crawling position doing some kind of exercise. Um, then we see a faraway shot that then we see a faraway shot of Adonis doing the crawling exercise outside of an airplane hangar while a small plane slowly drives. Then Damien is shown walking to the ring, and then a black screen. Then we see a black screen with the words "There's no enemy." Then we see Adonis lying on his back and lifting a weight with each hand while people are standing behind a whale and watching it as if it's a training event open to the public. Then we see Adonis doing push-ups possibly outside the airplane hangar. Then we see nighttime shots of what I believe is first Adonis and then Damien running. Then we see a black screen with the words "like the past," thus making the full message "There's no enemy like the past." Then we see Damien shirtless outdoors as if he's ready to train. Then we see Adonis sticking his head up from an ice bath. Then we see Adonis shown sitting in his corner during a fight, and we hear a voiceover from Bianca saying, "Don't let him destroy everything you've built." Then we see Adonis at home holding an object and swatting something. And like in the first trailer, I could not tell either the object that he's holding or the object that he's swatting. Then we see Bianca and Amara are sitting cross-legged on the floor as Bianca's right hand gently reaches over to Amara's right arm as if to comfort her. Then Bianca finishes her voiceover telling Adonis everything we've built, thus making the full quote, "Don't let him destroy everything you've built, everything we've built." Then we see Adonis watching Amara as she punches a punching bag. Then we see two men shown inside a building from behind looking at each other. I'm not sure what kind of building it is. I think the man on the right is Damien, and he's standing in front of a restroom, which door is open. Well, he's definitely standing in front of a restroom with an open door. I can make out that much. And the other man is standing in front of the main entrance, and its door is also open, and it goes out onto the streets. And then amid a black screen, we see the words Michael B. Jordan. Then we see Adonis leaning on the third rope in a boxing ring, possibly in the airplane hangar, and he seems to be seeing something that he doesn't like. Then on the black screen, it says Tessa Thompson, and then we see Bianca and Amara appearing to be at a boxing match and standing up, looking like they're very concerned about what just happened. Then we see a black screen that says Jonathan Majors. Then Damien is shown apparently standing up in his corner as a new round is about to start. And then Little Duke is shown telling Adonis, apparently between rounds in his fight with Damien, "You want to be a boxer?" Then Damien punches Adonis hard in the midsection. And then as Adonis is hunched over, we see a close-up of a boxer with head protection. I'm not sure who it is. And then over the last two shots, Little Duke says in a voiceover, "I need you to start fighting," thus making his full quote, "You want to be a boxer, I need you to you want to be a boxer, I need you to start fighting." Then first Damien and then Adonis are shown as if coming out of their corners and about to start their match. As if coming out of their corners and about to start their match. Then Adonis is shown punching Damien, and then we see a black screen that says Creed 3, and then finally we see the credits. All right, so that was a lot of ground to cover there. So first of all, um, my frequent Rocky collaborator Michelle Gusso and I have said, well, she's actually said it, but I've agreed with it. The purpose of a trailer is to get interested in is to get the purpose of a trailer is to get people interested in seeing the movie. Um, and I've seen every Rocky trailer, every Rocky/Creed trailer, and there aren't any that I think are great. I think a lot of them are decent. Um, but the only one prior to the Creed 3 trailers that I consider to be great is the second trailer of Creed. Um, I didn't care a lot for the first Creed trailer or either of the Creed 2 trailers. I thought they were adequate. Um, I like, um, in fact, I love the first Creed 3 trailer. And, like I said, I think it's only the second great trailer in the Rocky slash Creed series, along with the second trailer to Creed. Um, going into this movie, I was going to see it no matter what. But I was skeptical because, as you probably know, Rocky, Sylvester Stallone, is not in this movie the first time ever. Obviously, there would be no Creed series without Stallone. And it's going to be a tremendous loss. That doesn't mean that the movie can't be good. I was going to see it, but my expectations were not quite as high as they ordinarily would have been had Stallone been in the movie. But instead, I found myself very intrigued. Very I was very compelled by the plot that's revealed. And by the way, it's interesting that in the for the first two Creeds, the first trailer gave you only a general idea of what the movie was going to be about, and the second trailer um, gave a much more explicit example. Whereas in this case, the first trailer is very explicit about the plot, and which is why I don't think there was really any need for a second trailer, because the second trailer basically, while having a lot of different shots that are not featured in the first one, it doesn't give us much more information about what the movie is about. So I think the first trailer would have been completely sufficient. The first trailer would have been completely sufficient. Had I only seen the second trailer, I might have thought it was a great trailer too, but it's hard for me to be fully objective about it because, it just doesn't give me much insight into the movie that I did not already have, thanks to the first trailer, which I loved. And, you know, um, the first trailer, the first time I saw it back in October, right after it came out, um, my interest in Creed 3 went from solid but not through the roof to being very, very high, where now I think, I could be wrong, of course, but I think this might end up being one of the better movies of the nine in the Rocky slash Creed series. Um, Obviously, Rocky not being there is a tremendous loss, but that doesn't mean that his influence is not going to be there. First of all, like I said, if it were not for Stallone and not for the character, there would be no Creed, obviously. So this is continuing a saga that Stallone began that is about something much deeper than boxing, which is about always doing your best no matter what, always believing in yourself, facing and conquering your demons. And if you're going to lose, lose with no regrets. Things like that just transcend boxing, that are just timeless virtues. And so it seems that this movie is going to do that. And you know, I do not know for sure that when Ryan Coogler conceived Creed, that he intentionally set up all these things to open up future storylines. I suspect that he did. I remember telling Michelle in our episode on Creed that I suspected that the mention of Bianca's degenerative hearing condition was meant to set up plot elements in future sequels, which obviously that was proven to be correct in Creed 2. And now it seems that Adonis's troubled past that was mentioned in the original Creed, to the extent that the movie opened with him as a child, about 13 years old in a juvenile detention center, um, apparently was put in to set up future plot elements, which are going to um, really be deeply explored now. We knew that Adonis had been in a juvenile detention center and that he had bounced around in different homes before he was adopted by Marianne Creed, Apollo's widow. But we did not get any specific information about what his crimes were that got him into so much trouble, although it was revealed in the prologue of Creed by the lady at the juvenile detention center that Adonis, fights all the time. So anyway, the movie obviously is about, well, apparently, from what I gather, from what I've from watching these two trailers, this guy Damien, played by Jonathan Majors, and Adonis were friends growing up, and they got into some kind of trouble. And apparently, they were both promising boxers, but at least Damien thought he was better. And then, so while Damien is in prison, and by the way, we don't know why it is that he apparently got the book thrown at him since he was in jail for 18 years, and Adonis apparently was just tried as a juvenile. That's what I guess anyway, based on the information that we got from the first two Creeds and then from these trailers. And, maybe whether real or perceived, um, whether his perception is accurate, whether his perception is accurate or whether his perception is accurate or not, I suspect that Damien feels that Adonis was at least as responsible for whatever crime they committed, um, and therefore should have done as much time. And um, maybe Adonis got a break because he got adopted by Marianne, Apollo's widow. Although looking at the IMDb profile, two of the actors shown are Adonis Creed at age 15, played by Thaddeus J. Mixon, and then 18-year-old Damian Anderson is played by Spence Moore II. Um, and since it's mentioned that Adonis is 15 and Damien is 18 in those in the younger version of those characters, that could explain why Damien got the book thrown at him, and Adonis obviously did not. Adonis, as we saw in Creed, Adonis had a white collar job at what looked like. I think it said Smith Bordney Financial Group or something like that. I'll have to go check that out. But clearly, he had a white collar job and had just gotten a promotion when he decided to quit and then go into boxing full time. Um, so, but I'm very curious as to what the crime was, because if you serve 18 years for a crime, it was something really bad. Um, maybe second degree murder. I mean, because for manslaughter, you usually don't even get. You usually serve less than 5 years, certainly less than 10 years. So, or maybe it was drug trafficking or human trafficking or something like that. Obviously very serious to do 18 years for it. Now, if he was in prison for 18 years, it's fair to question how realistic it is that he's going to be able to get out of prison and be any kind of good boxer, let alone enough to contend for the World Heavyweight Championship. Now, Michael Vick, when he went to prison for dogfighting in 2007, granted, he was only there for, I think, a little under 2 years. He missed two full NFL seasons. Then the first season after his release in 2009, he came back and he played 7 or 8 years after that. And he was still good when he came back. In fact, he was actually better. And he had been given a lot of access to training facilities in prison. Now, certainly it's possible that Damien in prison had access to training facilities. Who knows? Maybe they have prison boxing leagues. I don't know. Maybe they figure that's a way for the prisoners to get out their aggression. I still question whether after 18 years in prison, not to mention if he were 18 when this happened and then he went in to prison for 18 years, that means he's going to be getting out around age 36. And if you haven't been facing heavy competition for that long and you're that age, I think it's a stretch to think that you're going to become a top flight boxer. Um, but I might be wrong. Nevertheless, it's a great plot element for Damien to be challenged by this person from the past and somebody who's going to really reopen a lot of wounds. And one thing that I've learned over the years is that jealousy is a very, very powerful, potentially destructive emotion. And people react differently to different things. Um, Sometimes people, let's say two people aspire to be musicians or athletes, and one becomes successful in the field, the other doesn't. Sometimes the one who doesn't is just ecstatic for the one who does, which is the way we all should be. But sometimes it works very much the opposite way. And this is a guy, obviously, who um, had a lot. He was if he committed a crime that put him in jail for 18 years. Obviously, he was troubled to begin with. And not only that, but prison. There are people who do reform themselves in prison, but there are a lot of people who come out just very hardened and worse than ever. Um, and without getting overly political, um, I do believe in being tough on crime. I disagree with the typical liberal approach to crime, which is to not punish these people, or to say we have to let people out and make sure that we have a certain racial balance in prison, things like that. I think that's counterproductive. But I disagree with a lot of conservatives when they view prison as you know a first resort rather than a last resort. My feeling is that, yes, there are people who need to be locked up for the safety of society, but that's only a last resort. We should do everything we can as a society to stop people from falling into crime, to make sure that we have as many kids as possible with two parent with who have two parent homes, where they're far more likely to get the love and nurturing they need and far less likely to drop out of school to get involved in crime, things like that. So anyway, and then as Michelle Gusso and I have said in several of our episodes, people who go into boxing tend to be troubled people, very often. I can't think of too many boxing matches I've watched where you saw both the fighter's mom and dad in the audience. Where I've seen that in plenty of other sports, but you don't normally see it in boxing because these are generally troubled kids from the streets. Um, but that also means that boxing has tremendous potential for powerful, compelling storylines in movies, um, which certainly looks like it's going to be the case here. And I've heard a phrase, in the book A Season on the Brink. I'm from Indiana. I grew up zealously following Indiana University men's basketball, and there's a book called A Season on the Brink, which is a chronicle of their 1985-86 season, and in particular their extremely successful but equally volatile head coach Bob Knight. The book was written by sports writer John Feinstein, who spent the entire season with the team. He was basically given an all-access pass to all the games, all the practices, team meetings, everything. And anyway, he quoted an assistant coach as mentioning how the previous summer the team had done an overseas trip, and they had played some games in Europe and Asia. And then one night in Japan, Knight just got furious and uh, basically dismissed all of the assistant coaches for I guess the remainder of the game. And they were walking the streets of Tokyo, and one of them said that he was hoping they would get mugged because he thought of that old expression that the most dangerous guy in the fight is the one who doesn't care if he lives or dies, and at that time it was them. Um, and keep in mind that Indiana was coming off a very bad season at that point. It was the season in which Knight famously threw the chair during a game against arch rival Purdue, and then also, you know, I believe it was in Creed 2 when no, no, I'm sorry. It was in the alternate cut of Rocky 5 that Michelle Gusso and I reviewed, in which um, while Rocky and Tommy are fighting in the street, and Rocky has a hold on Tommy and is and has a and has a good hold on his hair, Rocky says, I got nothing to lose, you got everything to lose. If that's not verbatim, it's close to it. So certainly another important plot element of Creed 3 is that Adonis has a lot to lose. Damien apparently has nothing to lose. We don't know anything about what kind of life Damien has, although it is interesting that one of the characters mentioned on IMDb is Damien's father, played by Yahya McClane. The first name spelled Yahya. I'm completely unfamiliar with him, so it is interesting that Damien's father is in the movie. It'll be interesting to see how their relationship is portrayed. But obviously, Adonis has millions of dollars now. He's living in luxury. He was raised in luxury from the time he was adopted by Marianne Creed. Um, and um, and so I mean, if he were to have a serious injury, or God forbid to die, then that could really cause him a lot of serious problems over the years, where he's going to be, impaired. And, like Michelle and I have talked about, not only boxers, but a lot of football players, we're just finding out in recent years, have serious debilitating injuries, to their brains and other parts of their body that prevent them from living normal lives from middle age on. And a lot of them die far below the general population. They die at a much earlier age than the general population does. I remember one of my uncles, who was a big sports fan, telling me that life expectancy for an NFL lineman is only 54, only 2 years older than I am. So obviously, the plot element of um, Damien being the one who has nothing to lose, Adonis the one who has everything to lose, um, and maybe, to quote the former Indiana University assistant men's basketball coach, the guy in the fight who doesn't care if he lives or dies. That could make Damien very dangerous, more so than Adonis, because if Adonis loses this match, you know he's a former heavyweight champion of the world, a second generation heavyweight champion of the world. He's got a very loving wife and daughter, and still a loving adoptive mother. Um, so he's going to be fine if he loses this match, as long as he's not maimed for life. So whereas Damien, obviously from what's portrayed in these trailers, he likes hurting people, and he has a chip on his shoulder, and he's just venting his anger out on anyone who he can, and especially wants to do it to Adonis out of jealousy and maybe out of bitterness that it was Adonis who apparently got off with not much more than a slap on the wrists, while Damien served 18 years in prison. Um, and also, this is just speculation, but I also wonder if the 18 years is a reference to former Carolina Panthers wide receiver Ray Caruth, who was released from prison in 2018 after serving just under 19 years. Um, he was convicted of second degree murder for hiring a hitman to murder a woman who was pregnant with his child after she refused to have an abortion. And although Caruth still maintains his innocence, he did nevertheless serve the time. Um, and he did seem to make some reforms to his life while he was in prison. I think he's kept a low profile since he was released 4 years ago. But anyway, even though Rocky is not in this movie, the lessons from the previous 8 movies certainly could still, shine through. And a point I started to make earlier, I was really disappointed when I found out that Adrian was not going to be in the movie Rocky Balboa, and yet that ended up being my favorite movie in the series. I'm a huge Talia Shire fan, and I'm a huge fan of Adrian, the character, especially because, you know, I'm very sentimental about her, because even though, like Michelle Gusso pointed out, and I ended up agreeing with, her one fault was that she did not um, accept that she married a fighter, and that she kept on trying to get him to stop. But I'm so sentimental. I'm so sentimental about Adrian, despite that that one flaw, because I've never been loved the way that she loved Rocky, and especially that scene in Rocky 5, even though it's my least favorite movie in the series, it's one of my favorite scenes in the series and one of my favorite movie scenes of all times, and I don't think I will ever be loved like that. And I have loved like that. I've just never been loved like that, and I suspect I never will. If I ever am, I'll certainly embrace it and treasure it to the fullest. Um, I'm also curious about Amara going into boxing. I know that sometimes the timeline is hazy in the Rocky slash Creed series, probably intentionally so. Like for example, probably the best example is in Rocky 5. It's never revealed how much time has elapsed. Um, and of course, by not revealing the amount of time, it does open up more possibilities to get away with things. If Amara Creed was actually born in 2018 and this movie takes place in 2023, then she would be 4 or 5 years old now. Um, and let's see, Amara Creed in this movie is played by Mila Davis Kent. This is her only her second IMDb credit, the first being an episode of the TV series The Resident from last year. The episode is from last year. No biographical information is listed on her, but she looks more like about 7 years old or so from what I've seen in the trailers. Um, anyway, we'll see if she becomes a female boxer, and I don't know if that will result in a spin-off series called Amara someday. We'll see. I remember people saying when I was a kid, predicting when I was a kid that there would be a spin-off, or that someday there would be a movie with Rocky Jr. as the main character. That hasn't happened yet, although the character, did appear in Creed 2 in the last scene. That wonderful finale, maybe the last time we'll ever see Rocky. We'll find out. Um, but one thing I really liked about Creed 2 is that Michael B. Jordan as Adonis Creed. And by the way, Michael B. Jordan is directing this movie. It's the first movie, not just the first Creed movie, the first movie period that he's ever directed. And certainly he's become a very big star to the point that, Adonis Creed isn't even his, most famous character. He's best known for whoever he plays in the, the what he's oh yeah, one of the comic book series. I don't know. I know he's in some of those superhero movies. I don't pay much attention to that genre. My kids do. Um, but anyway, oh yeah, but yeah, Black Panther. Yeah, Eric Killmonger. Okay, I'm looking at his IMDb profile right now. Um, so he doesn't even have to do these Creed movies. I assume he does it because he wants to. And it's great that he has that luxury and that they're letting him direct now. And it'll be interesting to see how he does as the director. Stallone directed Rockies 2, 3, 4, and 6. Um, and then, but anyway, back to my point that I was starting to make before I got sidetracked. One thing I really liked about Creed 2 is that, Michael B. Jordan as Adonis Creed, Tessa Thompson as his wife, Bianca, um, Felicia Rashad as Marianne Creed, Adonis's adoptive mother, Apollo Creed's widow, um, and also Wood Harris as Little Duke, the son of the son of Apollo's slash Rocky's trainer, Duke, played by the late Tony Burton in the first 6 movies. Little Duke, played by Wood Harris. Those four actors, that Jordan, Thompson, Rashad, and Harris, I thought in Creed 2 they were all getting really comfortably settled into their roles, and I expect, after that, and then from what I've seen of the 2 trailers from Creed 3, that will continue to be the case in Creed 3. And one thing I really liked about Creed 3 is that we really saw development and progression of all those characters. I felt that, and I feel in a lot of series sometimes when an actor plays a character 3, 4, 5 times, it starts to get stale where the character doesn't grow, where that character is just there to do what you expect that character to do. I think that happened to Paulie in 3 through 5, and then finally, thankfully, in 6, he was returned to being a very important character again, and that was just a sensational. um, performance by Burt Young in his final performance as Paulie. The character in Creed was revealed to have died in 2012, 6 years after Rocky Balboa was released. So that's a great nucleus. Those four actors: Jordan, Thompson, Rashad, and Harris, and each character was a solid progression in Creed 2 from what he or she had been in Creed. And I hope that will continue to be the case here in Creed 3. And I also found the character of Bianca um, to be more likable in Creed 2. I thought she was kind of a nag in Creed. Tessa Thompson's performance was good, and also her singing. For those of you who do not know, her character is a professional singer, and Tessa Thompson is a professional singer in real life. She actually did some songs on the Creed soundtrack, and I think on the Creed 2 soundtrack as well. And I just found the character to be kind of a nag in the first one, but not in the second one. I thought the character was more likable. I think Michelle did too, and she seems like she's going to be a very loving, supporting wife. And another thing is that the Creed 2 actually never revealed whether uh, Adonis and Bianca were married or not. Now, Adonis early in the movie did propose to Bianca and she accepted, but we never saw their wedding or any evidence that they were married. However, in um, the credits here on IMDb, she's credited as Bianca Creed, implying that they are indeed married. She was only credited as Bianca in Creed 2. So, anyway, then going down the list of the credits here. So, the billing in order here on IMDb: Michael B. Jordan, Tessa Thompson, Jonathan Majors, who plays Damian Anderson. Um, and I actually, let me look up Jonathan Majors. I'm curious as to if he has any. It says American actor born 1989. He was born September 7th, 1989. He's 33 years old. Um, it says Majors had a difficult childhood growing up with recently released criminals such as drug dealers or murderers for neighbors who wore ankle monitors due to his neighbors having both negative and positive values. Majors felt some moral complexity within them. As a teenager, Majors faced numerous struggles. He was arrested for shoplifting, suspended from high school for getting into a fight, and at one point lived in his car while working two jobs to make ends meet after being kicked out of his house. He eventually found a safe space in the world of theater where he found some solace and joined after watching Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight, in which he felt Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker to resemble the criminals with moralistic dualities he grew up with for his complexity of good and evil, leading him to become an actor so he could inspire others like Ledger did to him. Majors studied for his bachelor's degree at the University of North Carolina School for the Arts and later attended the Yale School of Drama. He graduated with an MFA degree in 2016. Wow, so I just learned something. I just learned all of that as I read it to you. And obviously, the kind of childhood he had, that's going to make this role more powerful, more personal to him. And I know that Michael B. Jordan has said in the media that this is a very personal story to him, that it, expresses a lot of things that he's been through in his life. So that probably will result in more powerful performances from the two. I don't see anything here about being an athlete. I actually went to his page to see if he had any history in boxing, because the main opponent of the title character in the last four movies, Tommy Morrison in Rocky V, Antonio Tarver in um, Rocky Balboa, Tony Bellew in Creed, and Florian Munteanu in Creed 2 are all real life professional boxers, or were, at the time they made the movies. And so apparently Jonathan Majors is not, which doesn't mean that he won't do well in the role. But I always felt that those four guys added a lot of authenticity because they were super high level boxers. I mean, even though Rocky V is my least favorite movie in the series, Tommy Morrison did bring a lot of realism to the movie because he was a top flight boxer. In fact, he won one of the world heavyweight championship belts 2 or 3 years after that movie. Um, so anyway, so looking down the list again, Michael B. Jordan as Adonis Creed, Tessa Thompson as Bianca Creed, Jonathan Majors as Damian Anderson, Wood Harris as Tony Little. It says Tony Little Duke Burton. I think that's a mistake. I don't think the character's name is Tony Burton. That was the name of the actor who played Duke in Rockies 1 through 6. Um, he's only been referred to as Little Duke. And by the way, the character of Duke in Rocky Balboa, his nameplate at the press conference said Duke Evers. So I assume that Little Duke's last name would be Evers also. Then we see fifth billing Felicia Rashad as Marianne Creed, sixth billing Mila Davis Kent as Amara Creed. Her first name is Mila. Jose Benavidez, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Benavidez. He plays Felix Chavez, who I know is one of the people who Damien fights in the movie. Then Selena Slava as Lara Chavez, I guess Felix's wife. Then a surprise for me in ninth billing is Florian Montanu as Victor Drago, returning after Creed 2. I have no idea what he will do in this movie. The man who played his father, Dolph Lundgren, who played Ivan Drago in Rocky 4 and Creed 2, is not listed here. Then 10th billing, Thaddeus J. Mixon as Adonis Creed, age 15. 11th, Spence Moore II as Damian Anderson, age 18. Another nice surprise, 12th billing, Tony Bellew, returning as Pretty Ricky Conlon, reprising his role from the original Creed. He was Adonis's climactic opponent. And that has the potential to be very interesting, especially as much as this movie relates to crime, because one of the plot elements of Creed was that this was going to be Conlon's last fight before he went to prison, possibly for 7 years because of gun possession. And, you know, as it's been about 7 years and 3 or 4 months since Creed came out, if Conlon did get the full 7 years in prison, and I don't know how much time he would serve in the UK, his home country. I don't know if they have the kind of parole system that we do, but it could be that he was just released from prison, and maybe he's trying to help one or both of the fighters here to not fall in and get into that life of crime and to stay out of recidivism. Maybe he's trying to learn from his mistakes, or maybe he's trying to come back. Who knows? But I thought he gave a great performance. As the antagonist who was shown in the end. He was a very antagonistic, abrasive character who made a lot of mean-spirited comments about his opponents. He got into a fight with Danny Stuntman Wheeler at the weigh-in, which and injured Wheeler breaking his jaw, leading to Adonis being plucked, to be his opponent by Conlon's manager, Tommy Holiday, played by Graham McTavish, in a role that I wish had been bigger, although he did a great job with what he had. But then in the end, after Adonis wins Conlon's respect, Conlon goes over and gives him some kind words at the end, tells him he's the future of the division, which of course turned out to be true. 3 years later, Adonis did become he did win the championship, although it should be noted that he was fighting as a light heavyweight in Creed, and then a heavyweight in Creed 2. And sometimes people do move up or down a weight class or two weight classes. It's not that unusual. So then let's see, looking at the rest of the featured cast here on the main IMDb page, we have Patrice Harris as Boog, credited as Patrice Boogie Harris. Ann Najjar, Najjar, I think that's an Indian name. She plays the character of Anne. Then Jacob Stitch Duran as Stitch. Terrence Crawford as Lorenzo Nightmare Jones. I assume that's a boxer who's probably one of the lesser opponents of one of the two fighters in the movie. Then Bobby Hernandez as Bobby Hernandez as Conlon's trainer. So that answers a question I was just posing a few minutes ago. Apparently, Pretty Ricky Conlon is going to be. Apparently, he has resumed his boxing career since getting out of prison. And then, like I said earlier, Yahya McClain as Damien's father. And let me then go to the full cast and crew to see if there's anything else that I want to mention here. Um, so, Stephen A. Smith is going to be in it, the famous sports commentator, playing himself. There's a guy here named Michael A. Jordan, whose character is Golden Gloves referee. Don't know if he's related to Michael B. Jordan or not. This is one of only two IMDb credits he has. The other is Dinner for Four, a movie shown as completed, also set for release in 2023. So, all right. Well, anyway, I'm very excited about it. Also, it should be noted that this is not only the first movie in the series, but also the first boxing movie ever to be shot for IMAX. So I am going to see it at an IMAX theater here in Indianapolis on Friday night. And I think that's going to make for an even more powerful cinematic experience. I mean, I was really awestruck um, by especially the part in Creed during the training montage when Conlon was punching those pads that his trainer was holding, and I just thought it just was so high impact the way it was done. So I think on IMAX, some of these boxing scenes could be really good. And one of the few criticisms I had of Creed 2, I thought it was only one notch below Creed. Um, I thought Creed was just awesome. I thought Creed 2 was nearly as good. I thought two things that were a slight letdown in Creed 2. I didn't think the boxing scenes were that good, and I didn't think the music was that good. The music was once again by Ludwig Göransson, the Swedish composer and former USC classmate of Ryan Coogler, who created the Creed series, directed the original, and co-wrote it. And he actually wrote the music for Coogler's student films at USC. So let me see who they've got. Okay, music here by Joseph Shirley. So let me see if there's any mention. So yeah, no mention of Ludwig Göransson this time. So let me see if I can get any information on Shirley that's interesting here. Joseph Shirley. Let's see. He has 29 credits on IMDb, all in music department. All in music department, composer, and soundtrack. So in other words, all music related. Um, no biographical information about him, though there is a picture of him here. He reminds me a little bit with his appearance of Keith Knudsen, the late drummer of the Doobie Brothers, with the dark hair and the light beard. Um, but probably no relation, but just an observation. The Doobie Brothers are one of my super favorite bands of all time. And let's see here. Well, so anyway, I will be there Friday night to see it on IMAX. Super excited about it. Um, and, you know, before I sign off, though, I do want to say a few words about Stallone's absence. Um, there have been some contradictory comments that he's made in recent years. He actually said right after the release of Creed 2 that that was his final performance as Rocky, and certainly, it was a good send off for him. But then again, I mean, even though Rocky 5 was not a good way to end the series, the last scene was a good way to send off the character of Rocky, the audience believing that he's brain damaged, probably doesn't have that much time left, walking on with his son into the twilight of his life. And, just having rebuilt his relationship with his son after abandoning it in favor of Tommy Gunn. And then, Rocky Balboa walking away from Adrian's tombstone, having found peace with his wife's death. Um, And then at the end of Creed, where Rocky has cancer, you don't know if he's going to survive or not. And, with Adonis's help walking up the stairs that he ran up in the original, as well as in 2 and in 6. Um, and then also he also ran up the steps in 5, although not training himself. First he did it with Tommy, and then with his son in the last scene. And then finally at the end of Creed 2, one of only a few times I've ever cried in a theater, when Rocky meets his grandson Logan. um, and I would guess probably Rocky's absence will be explained in this movie, saying that he's probably just retired, spending time with Rocky Jr. and Logan up there in Vancouver. Um, but we'll see. Although, I was glad there was at least a mention of Rocky in the in the first trailer. And then and but anyway, I keep on getting sidetracked here, which I tend to do when I talk about the Rocky movies, because I have such an active imagination to begin with, and my passion for the movies and all the different ideas that they spark lead me into so many different directions. Which is part of the. It might be annoying to you all, and I apologize if it is. But sometimes when I replay these episodes over the years, I laugh at how many directions I go off in. So anyway, I mean, the fact that it's about 4 minutes and 40 seconds worth of trailers, and now I've been talking about them for an hour and 6 minutes. Um, but anyway, Stallone, shortly after Creed 2, said that it was his last go round as Rocky, that he was going to retire from the series. Although then, shortly afterward, on Wikipedia, it was said that he was talking about making another movie unrelated to Creed, well, except that it would be in the Rocky universe, in which Stallone would return as Rocky, and this time play an illegal immigrant um, from south of the border. And you know, it's that certainly would not only have great potential, but also be very timely. And like I said to Michelle in the Creed 2 episode where I discussed that possible future movie, if they do that, they hope they do it in a nonpartisan way. Like I lauded Michelle's short film Soldier Song for addressing the problem of soldier suicide and post-traumatic stress disorder without doing it in a partisan manner. Um, I think it's even more important to do things in a nonpartisan manner now that this country is just so polarized, so divided politically. So, anyway, the other thing that was mentioned, that Stallone mentioned, or about 3 years ago, was a possible Rocky prequel TV series. I haven't heard anything more about that, or the movie about about Rocky training the illegal immigrant. Um, But anyway, Stallone apparently later became interested in being in Creed 3, but he said he didn't like the script. He felt, well, I don't, let me rephrase that. I don't think it was so much that he didn't like the script, it's that he saw the idea that they had, and he felt there was no place for Rocky, that they would just be putting him in for the sake of putting him in rather than because, you know, he fit into the story. But he unfortunately ended up having some kind of falling out with Irwin Winkler over the rights to the series, and it looks like it's pretty bad. And so anyway, Stallone said in a recent interview, and I know this isn't just a rumor because I saw the video of it. Um, he said he said Michael B. Jordan's a nice guy, and he said that he would be glad to work with Michael B. Jordan on creating, on coming up with a Creed 4, and Stallone said he would be in it if Winkler was not involved. So, you know, will that happen? We'll see. Although Michael B. Jordan has said that there will definitely be a Creed 4, and certainly, it would be great for Stallone to come back. And obviously, as long as they don't say that the character is dead, it would be easy to bring the character back. And of course, it's ironic, that the original script of Rocky 5 called for Rocky to die from the street fight with Tommy Gunn, and in fact, they filmed more than half of the movie with that being the plan, and then Stallone changed his mind. Although, like I told Michelle, I believe that if even if Rocky had died in the movie, that they would have brought him back anyway. You know, we know from all you Dallas fans know from the Bobby Ewing thing that being a character being dead doesn't mean anything. You know, of course, a more extreme example. My maternal grandmother religiously watched the soap opera Days of Our Lives, and I think the character of Stefano D'Amaro was said to be dead 8 times, only to come back. And after 4 or 5 times, well, first of all, I often joked that he was the only character who had come back from the dead more times than Jason from the Friday the 13th movies. But I said that I would not believe that Stefano was dead. The character of Stefano D'Amara, he was an organized crime boss. And I always said I would not believe that Stefano was dead until the actor who played him, Joseph Mascolo, died, and Mascolo died in the year 2016 at the age of 87. Um, so anyway, I would love for Stallone to keep playing Rocky, whether it's in a Creed movie or whether it's in this movie where he trains the illegal immigrant. The character's so much a part of him. He's 76 years old now. His mother, Jackie, just died 2 or 3 years ago at the age of 98. The character's, is not only part of him, but it's just so iconic, and it's such a symbol of faith and hope and love and perseverance and facing and conquering your demons. And it's just such a universal, timeless character that stands for so many basic truths of life. Um, and so I hope we haven't seen the last of him, but, even if we have, certainly, there were those 8, you know, mostly great movies, all great performances by Stallone, and they've inspired me for 41 years now since I first, you know, saw Rocky 3 at the Ohio Theater in my hometown of Madison, Indiana, during summer vacation in 1982 between 5th and 6th grade. Um, I was 11 then, I'm 52 now, and I just love the series more than ever. And, part of the reason that I get emotional, I think like I said, I normally don't cry in theaters. I think I cried at the end of the last, at the end of Rocky 5, Rocky Balboa, Creed, and Creed 2. I know I did at Creed 2 for sure. I think I did for all of those, and you got to understand, I mean, when you've been following a character that long and looked up to a character, as inspiration, and you've seen everything the character's gone through and just naturally grown and progressed over the years to finally meeting his grandson in that wonderful scene at the end of Creed 2, it was, it does hit you emotionally, And so, um, will there be anything that makes me cry in Creed 3? I don't know, but I do have high expectations for it, and I'm much more excited about it. Well, I was moderately excited about it. I'm very excited about it now after seeing the trailer, the first trailer, and then the second trailer. I don't think it added much, but it certainly didn't subtract anything from my enthusiasm for the movie. So, anyway, I will be back, of course, most likely with Michelle. She's always welcome anytime we talk about Rocky. This is only the second time I've done anything Rocky related without her. The first time was the 2 Creed trailers. I just didn't work it out to get together with her to do it, unfortunately. And I actually recorded the Creed 2 trailer episode the night before they came out. It's like, gee, this is the last day. I bet, it doesn't make much sense to do it. Or it wouldn't mean anywhere near as much to do it, before, you know, or it wouldn't mean as much, it wouldn't make as much sense to do it after the movie has already come out. I mean, they're still interesting to look back at, but I think part of the thing about doing a trailer review is, talking about what you expect from a movie, I always say you only see a movie once for the first time. You can see a movie 50 times and still love it every time and keep on finding new things to love about it, like some of my super favorites like The Shining and The Blues Brothers. Um, but there are certain things that are only going to hit you at maximum impact the first time you see them, like Drago throwing the towel, for example. That's something that I that was such an amazing shock, and yet it was done in a way that made it believable. That you could take it seriously. It wasn't forced. And I would love to know if Stallone started off with the intention of making the movie end that way. Um, I have no idea, but he probably did, and found his way to work up to that. Sometimes people who make movies actually start off with a certain ending in mind, whereas I usually work the opposite way. I usually start with just a concept and go where it takes me naturally, and then of course rewrite it a bunch of times. Um, but uh, on a side note, speaking of Michel Gusso, um, our last episode, in fact, the last episode of Super Deep Movie Analysis before this one was done on October the 11th of 2021. It was a trailer on the Rocky IV Ultimate Director's Cut, which aired for one night only at theaters on November 11th, Veterans Day, and then was released on digital and streaming the next day. And anyway, we said that we would be doing an episode on that together, and here's why we haven't. Um, Michelle and I went to a theater on that day to see it. It was up by the Castleton Mall here in Northeast Indianapolis, and we saw the. First of all, I felt disappointed by the live event that preceded the screening. It was said to be a Q&A with Sylvester Stallone. It was actually just an interview. To me, Q&A, maybe I'm wrong, but at least to me it implies that you're going to be taking questions from the fans. And it wasn't a bad interview at all. You know, he gave some good information. But anyway, then the that segment ended, and then we sat there with a blank screen for, I don't know, 15 minutes or so. No previews, no commercials or anything, no trailers. And then finally, this guy walks in from the side of the theater, and apparently he had never been trained in how to address the audience before. He just said something, and I didn't take note of what he was saying until he had already left. And he said something like, "We've got technical difficulties," and then I guess about another 15 minutes later, some guy said that, they had some sort of problem and it was going to take 2 or 3 hours and that we could leave if we wanted to and um, get a refund, which I did. I got my money back. And then Michelle and I each got a coupon for a free movie ticket in the future. I don't remember if I ever used mine or not. I have been back to that theater once. I saw no, I think I've been there twice. I saw Sonic 2 there with my son, and then I saw um, the last Minions movie there last summer with my son as well. He's a huge Minions fan and a huge Sonic fan. Um, but anyway, so then looked on the Fathom Events webpage. Fathom Events was the organization that was sponsoring, that was presenting this screening, um, and then I found out that there were at least dozens, not just one or two, but dozens of other screenings that failed where the transmission failed. And I saw at least one, I think there was more than one I saw, where somebody said the transmission failed, so we didn't get the interview with Stallone, but they had a backup DVD that they played of the movie. So I'm wondering, well, why didn't our theater have a backup DVD? It seems like everybody should have. And then Stallone on his Instagram page, where he had been promoting the Rocky IV Director's Cut, I think for more than a year by that point, um, showing brief little clips of it. He showed, no, he made a post thanking everybody for such a great for such a great screening the previous night, and then there were literally dozens of posts saying, "I never got to see it," and there was no response from Stallone. And it's like, I understand when you're a star of that magnitude, you don't have time to read all of the thousands of comments that people give, but that he was completely oblivious to what happened, and therefore wasn't able to do anything like to go to Fathom Event and ask them to rescreen it or something. And emailed Fathom Events several times and got nothing. I got a few form responses. The day after I got one thing said there wasn't a plan for another streaming. There wasn't a plan for another streaming, and that I could see it on DVD and or that I could see it on um, streaming or a digital download, and that they weren't planning on another streaming or another. They weren't planning on doing another screening of the movie. And I emailed about 5 or 6 times just asking basic questions. Why didn't my theater have a backup DVD? And nothing. So, after that complete lack of any service, I don't think I'll ever attend another Fathom event again. I I I found out that I had attended one previously and did not know it. I saw one. I saw a screening of The Shining at a theater in Plainfield, Indiana, here in the west suburbs back in 2016. Um, it was just and that was it was a 2 day engagement where they had two screenings on a Sunday, two on a Wednesday. Um, and I saw it advertised on this channel. I think it was AMC or one of the classic movie channels that my mother watched. And it had initials. Maybe it was AMC. I'm not sure. I know Ben Mankiewicz did an introduction for it, and I later found out after this thing with the Rocky Four debacle, excuse me, that the Shining screening was by Fathom Events. But yeah, I don't think I'll ever do business with them if that's how bad their service is. Both for not making for my theater not having a backup copy, and then for not doing a rescreening or not even providing any kind of customer service. And also, by the way, it should be noted that hold on just a second here. It should be noted that what was I going to say? Sorry, I lost train of thought there. Um, that to this day, to my knowledge, there's never been a DVD release of the director's cut, which I don't understand. And also, oh, the other thing I was going to say about the Fathom Events thing, I've never understood why they only had a one, a one that it was just one screening. Usually, when I hear about events like this, there are several screenings. Sometimes, like I said, in the case of The Shining, they had two screenings on a Sunday, two on a Wednesday. And usually, when I hear about an event like this, it's for multiple screenings like that. So I don't know why they only did one. Nothing about the whole thing made sense to me. So anyway, after I went through all that, um, it just left me with it left me with so many negative feelings. I just didn't want to see the director's cut, and I probably will break down and see it at some time. But the point is, like, let's say my car broke down on the way there and I missed the screen. It's like, oh darn it, it's too bad. Well, then I probably would have, got the streaming or download. Although I still don't understand the lack of a DVD, especially for a movie that, is going to have a large appeal to people who still buy DVDs. It's kind of like if a classic rock artist does a new album, it makes sense to put it out on CD because older people often still buy CDs. It's the younger people who um, are almost exclusively doing streaming and downloads. So anyway, that was a disappointment. But Michelle recently told me that she did buy a digital copy of the Rocky Four Director's Cut, and she wants us to do 2 episodes on it. One to super deep analyze the movie as if the original cut never existed, and then to do a second episode comparing the two cuts. And I told her, yeah, we'll do that. We just have to find the time to get together and do it. And then, of course, I have to get over there, and she's going to show me the director's cut, and I'll take notes on it, comparing the original two. That's how I did the episode. That's how I prepared for the episode of the alternate cut of Rocky Five. I took notes of. I did a list of all the scenes, side by side of all the scenes from each cut to make sure that I went through every scene and showed, and to make sure that I went through every scene and mentioned the ones that are common to the two versions, that are only in one version or the other. And then in many cases, I mentioned the differences between uh, identical scenes that are, let me rephrase that. I also mentioned cases where the same scene appears in the two different versions, but the scenes are cut differently, which is the case for a lot of the scenes in um, those two versions, the Rocky Five original cut and the unofficial alternate cut that's on the Daily Motion website. And I have an episode on Michelle and I have an episode on that I hope you'll check out, as well as the original um, cut. We did an episode for each cut. So anyway, yeah, Michelle and I will be doing that at some point in the future. But I will also say that I saw, you know, I did see on YouTube a few clips of the alternate cut, as well as a few side-by-side comparisons, which are interesting. And I will say that this new director's cut ruins the ending of the movie. Now, that's not to say there won't be a lot of great material in the director's cut that's not in the original cut. Based on the trailer, I think there will be, but you know, the ending, to ruin such an awesome emotional power ending like the original, um, I thought was a terrible, terrible mistake. And from what I've read, it seems to me that this this alternate cut, it should have just been released as Rocky 4 alternate cut rather than the ultimate director's cut, because it doesn't sound to me like there's anything ultimate about it. It sounds to me simply like this is just um, doing a different cut for the sake of doing a different cut. So we'll see. I'll watch it open-mindedly, but when you have a movie that has such a powerful emotional ending and then you screw it up like that, that really takes the wind out of your sails. And it reminds me, you go back to the 1984 original Footloose. That was shown to test audiences, and in the cut that they were shown, there you didn't get to see the kids have their dance. It ends with Ren McCormick, the main character, played by Kevin Bacon, driving his girlfriend Ariel, played by Laurie Singer, to the prom, and then in the credits you see them dance in slow motion. But the audiences liked the movie, but they didn't like the ending, and the filmmakers determined that would be the difference between the movie being a moderate hit and a big hit. So they did a dance scene. And the movie was a huge hit, one of the biggest hits of 1984. It's one of my favorite teen movies of the 80s. And common sense should say, when the whole point about the movie is that the kids want to dance, you got to show that they had their dance. I can't imagine why anybody would think that the movie would work without it. Um, and here's another example. Um, there's well, let me back up to Footloose. I mean, that scene, where the kids have wanted to dance the whole movie, and then when Rin runs into the room and yells, "Let's dance," and they start playing Kenny Loggins' title song, which was a big hit when the movie came out, and a great party song, um, classic 80s hooks in it. That's just such an emotionally satisfying moment. Without it, the movie would have lost so much. And the ending of Rocky Four in this director's cut loses a lot. Um, and it's like Stallone just changed it for the sake of changing it, which is not a sufficient reason to change something. You should change something if it's going to be better, not if it's going to be worse. It's much worse the way it is. But again, maybe overall there'll be enough good in the director's cut that I'll still recommend it. We'll see. Like I said, I'll be open-minded about it. One other example about the importance of having a strong ending. God, what was I going to say? I want to think of it. I don't want to think of it right after I shut off the filming here. But God, I've been talking for nearly an hour and a half now. But certainly, I will look forward to those episodes regardless. And Yeah, there's another movie I was going to talk about changing the ending though. Let's see, what was it? Well, anyway, if I think of it, I'll mention it in the next episode. But for now, I think that I've said just about everything I want to say in this episode, and then some. I felt like I needed to tack on that bit about the Rocky Four director's cut because it had been, close to a year and a half now since Michelle and I did that episode, and you might have wondered why we hadn't done that, and you might have wondered why we had not yet done an episode on the director's cut. So that's why. And I will be doing some more episodes. I've had a really hectic, almost year and a half since you last heard from me. A lot of stuff's happened. My mother suffered a stroke last June 11th, died last October. I'm sorry. She suffered a stroke on August 11th, died on October 11th. Um, and so much tumultuous stuff has happened. I'm doing okay, but it's just I haven't had time to sit down and do any more episodes since then. But I have a lot on the back burner, including a lot of non-Rocky stuff. My son and I actually are going to be doing some episodes. My son Liam, he's an actor under the name Liam Isaac. Probably our first one is going to do Night. Probably our first one is going to be Night of the Living Dead, which he introduced me to recently. I only saw about the last 15 minutes, but I was amazed at how much I liked it because that was a movie I never had any interest in seeing, and I thought it was excellent. So now I'm going to watch the whole thing because the last 15 minutes were, I thought, really, really good. So I'll be doing some episodes with him, and then my friend and actress Jennifer McDarmott Hartman and I are going to do the Godfather trilogy, an episode on each movie in the trilogy. That's going to be really exciting, and Michelle and I have talked about doing some other movies as well. Um, we don't always have the same taste in movies, obviously, do with Rocky. That's been a big common bond with us for quite a few years now. I remember being really surprised to find out that she was a fan of the series. Um, so anyway, hopefully I'll have at least one episode a month or more. And I hope you all enjoy them. And if you have any requests, anything you want me to do, let me know. And certainly anything Rocky related, I'll do. But I've got a lot of other movies that I want to super deep analyze as well. So anyway, one other point I want to make. One reason I was so surprised about Stallone making this change to the ending of the Rocky Four director's cut is that he spoke about the importance of giving the audience emotional payback. So again, he probably was just thinking, I've got alternate material out here, might as well use it. So at least we have the original to turn to. But I think what's going to happen now is they're going to be fans are going to start making their own cuts. Combining their favorite moments of each cut. So anyway, um, what the other movie I was thinking about, changing the ending of, I'll do it next time. But anyway, for now, I've been speaking for 93 minutes about 4 minutes and I've been speaking for 93 minutes about two trailers that total 4 minutes and 40 seconds, and my throat's very dry, and I'm starting to get tongue tied as a result of that. So anyway, I will probably sign off here. So, um, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for being patient. It's been about 500 or so days since the last episode. I promise it won't be that long until the next one. Um, Hope you all be at the theater on Friday night. IMAX preferably, but any theater is good. And even though Stallone won't be present for this go round, I hope that he will be back for future movies, and regardless, I think that the presence of Rocky will be felt, just like the presence of Adrian was felt in Rocky Balboa. So, Anyway, hopefully this will be an inspiring story of faith, hope, and love, and all the other good stuff that the Rocky/Creed series has come to represent now for amazingly 47 years. And I just got an idea. Maybe we got to do some kind of 50th anniversary thing in 3 years. So anyway, thanks so much for joining me. I will be back with some more episodes in the near future. As always, feel free to stay in touch. Feel free to contact me on it. I'm on all social media as Lec Zorn, simply Leczorn. You know, the cool thing about coming up with an oddball short name like that, it's easy to remember, and you can easily get that name, that username at any website you want. So anyway, and you can also email me at lexzorn@gmail.com. And so anyway, thanks so much for hanging in there with me, and I hope to see you in the near future at a movie or otherwise. And until then, um, for Lex Zorn, this is for Super Deep Movie Analysis. This is Lex Zorn saying thanks for any time that you spend delving into these episodes with me. I hope you enjoy it, and remember, there is a difference only you can make.